Hello Booktube, it's Roz, back with a tag for Tag Tuesday. This is the end of the year tag, which was created by Ariel Bissett, and I was tagged by Sina of Beating Around the Books. This is a venerable tag with some years history now, and it was designed to come round like a hardy perennial, as a tag to do in the autumn, and for any book reader that might fancy it. I'm going to tag 4 booktubers that I've discovered relatively recently. Fraser Simons of Springboard Thought, Brandon of Brandon's Bookshelf, Red Dot Reads, and Elizabeth of Bouquins and Books. So feel free to do this if you fancy it. It's a fun one about plans, I suppose. So, prompt number 1. Are there any books that you need to finish, that you already started and need to finish? Okay, well, I've got one book that I've started that I need to finish by the end of October, because we're currently in October, because it's a Victorian novel. It's Dr. Thorne by Anthony Trollope. And when I finish that, that'll be my October reading done. I've got 3 other books that I've started, but that I don't necessarily need to finish this year. One is Dante's Divine Comedy, which I'm reading with Tom of Tom LA Books, and we're going to roll into 2022 with that because we're doing it so slowly. Thank you, Tom, for his weekly canto or 2. We're nearly at the end of Purgatorio now. I'm just a little way into Robert Browning's The Ring and the Book, which I'm reading with Kate Howe and Jennifer Brooks, and again that's going to roll into 2022. And another book that I've started that I do feel I want to finish is Dream Songs by John Berryman, which I kind of started back in the summer along with Alan of Big Hard Books and Classics, and I've sort of neglected it a bit in the last couple of months because of other reading, but I'm going to pick that up again, and that one I should try and finish by the end of the year, I think. So do you ever finish a book of that's a long collection of poetry? You probably don't, because you're going to go back to it, aren't you? Prompt number 2. Do you have an autumnal book to transition to the end of the year? Now, I struggle a bit with the idea of seasonal books. I don't think I do seasonal readings. I don't know what kind of book would be an autumnal book. One that's sort of mellow and fruitful and perhaps, a little melancholy. One with a lot of rain in it. I don't know. But last year I did a kind of my own seasonal reading of a sort, I suppose, because I decided to have a genre reading Christmas and New Year. And because I sometimes not exactly avoid books from genres other than sort of literary fiction, but neglect them a little, I suppose. And so that was the most enormous fun. I thoroughly enjoyed that. So this year I'm going to have a genre reading December, the whole of December and into the new year. And so that will be my equivalent of an autumnal book to help me transition through into the winter season, as it were. And as part of that, I'm going to read a book that sounds autumnal, even if I'm not sure that it is, which is House of Leaves, and by Danielewski, which fits my genre December category, I suppose, because it's kind of horror but also experimental fiction. So that one's going to be fun. I've got some lovely fantasy lined up because I'm going to read Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin and finish that trilogy finally, because I must do that before the end of this year. I'm going to read some historical fiction. The Cross by Sigrid Undset, again that's completing something, but also I'm going to read a sort of a couple of murdery things for there's a December, what's it called? Let me remember. Cloak and Dagger Christmas. That's it. So that's as one strand of my genre December, I'm going to read some detective fiction. I've had The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman for all year and haven't picked it up yet, so that's one for sure, and others. So lots of happy plans for that. I'm going to read a YA book, but a YA book with a difference, because I'm going to read Puck of Pook's Hill by Rudyard Kipling. So that's Edwardian young adult fiction. Lots of plans. Prompt number 3. Is there a new release you're still waiting for? No, there really isn't. I really kind of awaiting new releases. It's not really, I don't, I'm interested in new books when they come out, but I'm very rarely sort of thinking, oh, I can't wait for that one to arrive. I'm just pleased when I see it. Not that I don't enjoy contemporary fiction, because I really do. And I will, I think, find myself, well, no, I'll say more about that in a minute. Yes, I'll hold that thought about reading contemporary fiction. I'll come back to that, because I'm going to answer the next prompt first, which is 3 books you want to read before the end of the year. So I've got 3 buddy reads coming up in November. So I've got lots of books I want to read before the end of the year, but I'm going to mention these 3. The Shadow King by Marzan Mengiste, Ethiopian-American writer, her novel from 2019. Looking forward to that. I'm going to read The Old Man and His Sons, which is a 1970 novel by an author from the Faroe Islands, Hedin Bru. And a third buddy read that I'm enormously looking forward to, which is actually going to fall in December and be another historical fiction choice, and that's Palace Walk by the Egyptian author Naguib Mahfouz. Came out in 1956, and I'm reading that with Tom of Tom Elliott Books. We've never read anything together other than Dante, so where he's very much in the lead, so this is going to be more of a shared thing. And so those are 3 things that I absolutely want to read by the end of the year. I also need to read at least 1, maybe 2 books from new countries, so that I kind of keep up with my aim to kind of work my way around the countries of the world. And I'm certainly going to read 1 from St. Kitts before the end of the year, and that's Only God Can Make a Tree by Bertram Roach. That's it. Prompt number 5, is there a book that could still shock you by becoming a favourite book of the year? Well, I think it's possible that Palace Walk might do that. We'll see. It's certainly one that is very highly recommended. Another possible contender for being best book of the year, according to other people's sort of recommendations, is one I'm reading for Indigathon in November. That's Nupeming. Everyone who's read it tells me it's extraordinary, so we shall see. The one that I suspect might turn out to be certainly one of my top books of the year is The Posthumous Memoirs of Brasilias, the Brazilian novel that I'm reading also in November. So we shall see. We shall see if any of those take top spot of the year. I've read some very good books this year, so there's going to be competition. I will do an end of the year wrap up and let you know which were my top books. Then, prompt number 6, have you already started making reading plans for 2022? And this was why I hesitated earlier, because I was going to say something which would have preempted my answer to this prompt, which is, yes, of course, I've got all sorts of reading plans for 2022, mostly not that fixed yet, though. But one thing that is a fixed reading commitment for 2022, but I don't yet know what it will entail me reading, is that I'm going to take part in the Booktube Prize again. And this is my little compulsory Booktube Prize advert. You too can be a Booktube Prize judge. Have a look at the video, the judge recruitment video that I'll put in the show notes, and think about signing up. More judges definitely needed, and you don't have to have a channel to be a judge. Just be a Booktube or Bookstagram involved person, and I know that this year some of my top reads of the year came from the books that I read as part of the Booktube Prize, because it's for me, that was reading they were contemporary fiction. And I fully anticipate that the same will be true next year. I'm hoping to read books for the translated fiction group, which is a new group. Although the non-fiction group choices will also no doubt be brilliant, but you can't do everything. But I know that will it's a way of planning, but not planning, because I don't know what's going to be in my group, and I've just got to get on and read it. So it adds a more spontaneous element to my year's reading, my sort of spring and summer reading, put it that way. What else have I got planned though? I did Sean the Book Maniac's Mooks and Gripes bucket list tag not that long ago, and that's set me off on some reading plans, because the tag was to, and I'll link to Sean's original in case you fancy doing it, was to name 10 books that were on your bucket list of things you want to read before you kick the bucket, is the notion. And it just I found books to say, but it just made me realise how ridiculous it was not to just get on and read them soon. So I've already read one. The posthumous, which was Daniel Deronda. The posthumous memories of Brass Cubas was another one on the list, and I've got that planned for November. And I will definitely next year read Don Quixote, which has been on my sort of long-term TBR for I don't know how long. So that's for sure. And I'm also going to read one that wasn't on my Mooks and Gripes list, but was on Hannah of Hannah's Books list, and that's Portrait of a Lady by Henry James. She said, she felt that was one she should read, and I thought, yeah, why not? Me too. Could equally well have been on my list. So, and I'm also determined not to wait till next Victober to read another Anthony Trollope book. So all of those are sort of Mooks and Gripes bucket list inspired. I will also make sure that I read another somewhere between 10 and 12 books from countries that I haven't previously read a book by an author from that country, so that I can aiming to get down to the last 20 countries by the end of the year. It gets more and more difficult as you go along, but I keep finding things at the moment, so fingers crossed. I will be doing a discussing drama play every month with Tilly. We can't resist carrying on, so that's another 2022 plan. I do plan, don't I? Oh dear. And finally, one thing I've done this year that I certainly hope to do next year in 2022 is read books by fellow booktubers. So this year in 2021, I've read a couple by Mark Nash. I've read one by Charles Heathcote and one by Joe O'Malley, aka Two Titled Trek. So in 2022, I'm planning on reading, or if not sooner, one by Pavio, one by Britta Boller, and one by Margaret Pinard. So that's another of my, as I say, I am a planner when it comes to reading. Not a mood reader. I can't help it. It's my earnest and well-intentioned and self-improvement kind of ethos that's stuck there in the back of my brain that won't let me not plan. And why wouldn't you want to plan when reading is such a pleasure? Happy planning for you too. And do this tag, even if I didn't tag you, if you fancy it.